Welcome everybody to Extreme Off-Road Silly Builds, and today we're dealing with the 2023 Lotus Emira. Now this has 1,356 horsepower, 1,021 pounds-feet of torque from a 7.5 litre twin turbocharged V8 engine. The car itself now weighs 2,808 pounds, now has off-road tyres, all-wheel drive and off-road suspension. And the vehicle can now do 0 to 60 in 2.869 seconds, 0 to 100 in 5.635 seconds, and going to a top speed of 212 miles an hour. So the fastest Lotus that we've had on this series so far has been the Evija. Now that is the only other Lotus that we've had on this series so far, so if we can match that or beat it, then I'll be quite impressed, because the Evija had way more power. Being an electric car, its power and torque is virtually instantaneous in terms of being delivered to the road. So yeah, and for such a heavy car it was reasonably quick, even when, especially when you consider it's not meant for going off-road at any kind of speed. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what this can do in comparison, because it is lighter, and even though it has a hell of a lot of power, even more than it had originally by a long way, it's yeah, nowhere near as much as the Evija had. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see which can be quicker, the one with the less power and the less weight, or the one with the more power and more weight. Granted, this is a newer car, and it is also smaller as well, so it should be more agile. Yeah, could go either way with this, especially considering it is again not a car meant for going off-road at this kind of speed or this kind of off-road difficulty. So these kind of cars can be properly quick or stupidly slow, very rarely in between. If they are quick, they're usually quicker than any off-road vehicle that has been on this series, because surprisingly off-road vehicles on this series are not as quick as you might expect. Certainly don't have an off-road vehicle in our top spot at the moment. I think it's still that Mercedes AMG, which is the only car on this series to get below 3 minutes 10. Big airtime there. Mostly landed it well. The rear end did pop up a little bit, but not too much, and we've certainly seen worse than that on that landing. Fair bit of understeer, which is to be expected given it never had all-wheel drive to start with, and there is obviously power going through those front wheels as well, which is the chassis and the like was not obviously built for dealing with. But on the whole, it's dealing with the power, which is obviously nearly 1,000 extra horsepower. As I said, 400 horsepower originally, from a much larger engine, while going at a faster rate than it normally would as well. Really rather well. No real issues apart from the understeer so far. The big thing this does have on its side is the fact that the handling, even though it's worse than it would be if had slick tyres and whatnot, is still fairly good, especially compared to a lot of cars in this series. It's not got as much power as the Evija, because it weighs so little in comparison to that car, and quite frankly a lot of other modern cars in this series. Its power isn't really being wasted at all. Out there, we're getting up to nearly 170. Well, that's quicker than the Evija by more than a second, I believe, at 3 minutes 14.055 seconds. So yeah, we're well over a second quicker than that Evija. In fact, we were about 1.8 seconds quicker than the Evija was, and that time puts us just outside of the top 10, but we go slap bang into 11th place beating the Mercedes-Benz SL65 AMG Black Series out of the 11th spot. We're also quicker than the rally car, the MG Metro 6R4, the GMC Hummer EV pickup, Lancia Stratos, as well as a Ford Focus RS rally car, and a Peugeot 207 rally car as well. So yeah, we're only ever so slightly behind a Ford XB Falcon GT, and I imagine that's because that had quite soft suspension in its stock form, so when you raise it to an off-road suspension, it's only really getting softer, and softer suspension does tend to deal with the off-road elements a little bit better, especially the jumps. So yeah, that's why I imagine we're slightly slower than that car, but that is still a fantastic time. No real issues at all outside of the slight bit of understeer in a few corners, and even then that was only a few corners, it wasn't consistent. So yeah, mightily impressed by that, and yeah, comfortably the quickest Lotus we've had on this series. Not sure if there will be another Lotus that could be even quicker than this, but yeah, definitely a manufacturer to look out for in future episodes. Nonetheless, so thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.